Hi guys, it's Miss Sword again. I'm back today with a new story. This time the story is from Grandma's Magical Storybook. This is fantastic. It's got lots of little stories inside, but we're only going to read one today. I would like you to have your best listening ears on, ready to answer any questions, because I will be asking questions throughout the story. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. Okay. So our story today is called Gran's Magic Wardrobe. Okay, Gran's Magic Wardrobe. So before I even begin to read, I want you to think, what do you predict is going to happen in this story? Just from the title, Gran's Magic Wardrobe, what do you predict is going to happen in this story? Okay, I'll give you a minute to pause and you can discuss with your families, and then you can begin reading with me. Okay, Jenna's Gran wasn't like other Grans. She didn't come visiting very often, and she never ever baked cookies or knitted colourful jumpers. Okay, so the first question is, what adjective was used to describe the jumpers? Okay, to give you a bit of a hint, an adjective is a describing word. So I'm going to read the sentence again. She didn't come visiting very often, and she never ever baked cookies or knitted colourful jumpers. Not ever. Okay, if you got colourful as your adjective, well done, that's correct. You see, Jenna's Gran was an explorer. She was always off visiting some faraway corner of the world. So she didn't have time for visiting and baking like ordinary Grans. But Jenna didn't care. She thought her Gran was just brilliant. When she did come to stay, she always gave Jenna the most fantastic presents, and she always told the best stories about her adventures. So you can imagine how excited Jenna was when Gran came to stay for the summer. She couldn't wait to see what wonderful things Gran had brought back with her this time. Okay, so another question. What do you think Gran has brought back with her this time? What do you think Gran has brought back with her from her adventure this time? But the only thing Gran brought back was the biggest, ugliest wardrobe Jenna had ever seen. "You don't mind me storing it in here, do you?" Gran asked as it was pushed into Jenna's tiny bedroom. "But why do you need such a big wardrobe?" asked Jenna. "Ah, well, things aren't always what they seem," winked Gran. But Jenna wasn't really listening. She was busy thinking how ugly the wardrobe made her room look. Jenna lay glaring at the wardrobe while Gran told her a bedtime story. Okay, so what do you think now? What do you think glaring means? What does glaring mean? Okay, so glaring means to stare at something really unhappily, so. Okay, and that's how I stopped the Tickatooey tribe from burning the wardrobe, finished Gran. But for once, Jenna wasn't listening to Gran. In fact, Jenna wasn't very happy. Gran had forgotten to bring her a present, and, to make matters worse, she'd cluttered up Jenna's beautiful room with her horrible wardrobe. It wasn't even as if Gran had that many clothes. The next morning, a letter arrived for Gran. "Fantastic," she said after reading it. "I've been invited to lead an expedition up the Catani River. The only thing is, I have to leave today." Jenna was very sorry to wave her Gran goodbye, and she was even more sorry that she didn't take the horrid wardrobe with her. That night, Jenna said goodnight to Mum and Dad. She sat on her bed, staring at the wardrobe. Why did Gran want such an ugly thing? What did she keep in it? Jenna was sure that Gran wouldn't mind if she took a quick peep. She slipped from the bed and tiptoed over to the wardrobe. Before she even touched it, the door swung open. Okay, so what do you think Jenna is going to find in the wardrobe? What do you think Jenna is going to find inside the wardrobe? A soft breeze seemed to come from the wardrobe. Jenna crept closer. It smelled lovely, just like a forest. Jenna stepped in and pushed past one of Gran's old raincoats. Suddenly, she felt herself falling. She closed her eyes and waited for a bump, but she landed on something soft. When she opened her eyes, she blinked twice and pinched herself. She must be dreaming. She was no longer inside Gran's wardrobe. Where do you think Jenna is now? She's no longer inside Gran's wardrobe, so where do you think she is now? Instead, she seemed to be in a beautiful, sunny forest. "Hiya, Jenna," said a voice. "We've been expecting you." Jenna looked up and was surprised to find herself being spoken to by a colourful bird. But where am I?" whispered Jenna, feeling just the tiniest bit afraid. "You're in the wardrobe," chirped another voice. Jenna looked around to find that it belonged to another bird. "Gran told us you'd be popping in," he continued. But birds don't talk," stuttered Jenna. "In the wardrobe, everything speaks," said a tree, helping Jenna to her feet. "That's just the way things are." Just then, Jenna heard the toot of a horn. "Look smart," cried the tree. "His Nibs is coming." Jenna watched in amazement as a funny cart pulled by two rabbits rattled into view. "Welcome, welcome," cried a voice, and out jumped a little man. The funniest little man Jen had ever seen. He was no bigger than Jenna, but his head was just enormous. Okay, so what does enormous mean? What does enormous mean? Okay, if you said enormous means anything to do with big, huge, massive, the size being large, that's correct. Well done. Okay, and on his head he wore what looked like a dustbin. "Ah, I see you're admiring my crown," smiled the funny little man. "It blew in from the world outside one day. Isn't it the finest crown you've ever seen?" Jenna tried really hard not to laugh. "Anyway, allow me to introduce myself. I am Toot Turtletooth, the king of the wardrobe, but my friends call me Toot for short." He shook Jenna's hand so hard that her feet almost left the ground. "As granddaughter of Gran the Great, who saved the wardrobe from being burnt at the hands of the Tikatui tribe, you are an honoured guest here. And as it is not every day that we have honoured guests, we are going to have a party." Toot clapped his hands and the wood jumped into action. Trees shook their branches so that fruits and nuts fell onto the plates below. Birds dropped berries from the sky. Chattering creatures carrying trays of cakes and sandwiches appeared out of nowhere. Other creatures danced around, decorating the place with colourful flowers and leaves, and jugs of sparkling drink appeared out of thin air. "Let the party begin," cried Toot, and a band of squirrels started to play a lively tune. Toot passed Jenna a glass of foaming pop, and she sat down on a handy rock. "Hey, get off!" shouted a voice. "Rocks have feelings too, you know." Jenna leapt up. "Sorry," she gasped. "I forgot that everything in the wardrobe can speak." Okay, so here's a picture of them all having a bit of a party, and there's the rock Jenna sat on. Jenna had a wonderful time. She made friends with everyone, including the rock, who even let her sit on him after a while. Later in the evening, everyone gathered around to sing a song about how Jenna's Gran had saved them from being burnt in the Tikatui tribe's fire. "She's wonderful," said Toot, after they'd finished singing. "She often pops in, and she's even promised to find a safe place for the wardrobe. A place where somebody will always look after us." "Let's hear it for Jenna and her Gran," shouted Toot. "Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray!" "Ooh, I feel a little sleepy," yawned Jenna. A little while later, after she had drunk her third nettle pop and eaten her fourth honey sandwich, "I think I'll just lie down for a little while." She lay down on a soft bed of grass and closed her eyes. The last thing she remembered was being covered in a blanket of purple leaves by tiny flocks of hummingbirds. When she awoke, she was no longer in the wardrobe. She was in her own bed. "I had the most fantastic dream," she told her mum and dad at breakfast. "Well, it looks like you've been climbing through a hedge," laughed Dad, pulling something out of her hair and handing it to her. What do you think Jenna's father has pulled out of Jenna's hair? What do you think her dad's pulled out of her hair? Okay. Jenna looked down to see what Dad had pulled out of her hair. It was a purple leaf. Jenna tingled with excitement. Her adventure in the wardrobe must have been real after all. Oh yes, said Mum. Gran called last night and said to tell you that you can keep the wardrobe. Can't see what you'd want with it though. Oh, well, things aren't always what they seem, smiled Jenna. I will keep it safe forever. Jenna just couldn't wait to pay her friends in the wardrobe another visit, and she couldn't wait to tell Gran all about her adventure. Okay, so that's the end of that story. I hope you all enjoyed that. I have got a task for you now. So, I want you to imagine that someone has given you a magic wardrobe as a present, maybe for your birthday or Christmas, but imagine you've got a magic wardrobe, and I want you to think, or maybe draw me a picture actually, draw me a picture and say what can be found inside your wardrobe. So what kind of thing? So I've done a picture here, I'll show you. So inside my wardrobe, hopefully you can see that. You can see some majestic mountains. It's maybe where some dragons live. And you can see a nice cool river or lake, perhaps where the mermaids are living underneath. And then you've got maybe like a little gold palace that sits on the river. Okay. But if you're finding it tricky and you don't want to draw, that's absolutely fine. You can just write 5 sentences about what I'd expect to find in your wardrobe. So what would I expect to see inside your wardrobe? Maybe you have talking animals. Maybe you have you've gone into the future from now. Maybe you're in year 3000. We've got spaceships and we're driving in that. It's completely up to you, but I look forward to seeing your pictures or your sentences. But until then, take care, and I will be uploading soon too.